go from good to great, we've got to get from mediocre to good first, right?
That's right.
Hey, that's what we do here at the Finder Flippers podcast. We take you from the ground up. We have figured out who Dennis really is.
It's my alter ego. He gets better views than Johnny does.
We are considered by some to be at the bottom or a moderate.
We are mediocre.
Mediocre
at best.
So somebody's got to be there, so why not us?
Taking podcasts to new levels of mediocrity.
Well, welcome back, everyone, to the Finders Flippers Resell podcast. I am Wes, and we are joined again this evening by, I believe, is it Dennis over there? Is that you, Dennis?
It's Dennis. Okay. Dennis from Frizzy Spines.
Yeah, Dennis in the house. Wasn't sure when you changed your name, but wow.
Yeah, I didn't know I did either, but.
So we'll go with Dennis. Not really. And we have Stewart from Franklin Hill Ventures. How you guys doing again today?
Hey, doing great.
So I was just talking a little bit about margins and kind of what you guys think when we sell a lot of clothes, right? And we'll buy them for $4 or $5 and they'll turn around, and our average sales price last year on eBay was $45 and our average cost of goods is like $3 to $4. So we're used to that, like very low, and then, really 10xing our money. But I was at a garage sale 3 weeks ago, bought 4 hockey jerseys. The guy wanted $75 a piece, so it would have been $300 for all 4. And I asked him, if I bought all 4, would you take $200? And he said, sure, which was more than I wanted to pay for them, just because they really go for what they sold for, right? I sold 3 of them for $90 to $95, and this last one sold for like $160. So at the end of the day, I spent $200 and I made $175, which is not the typical margins that we do. And I don't care, because it's just something that I love to sell. If it was, anything Stewart sells, I probably wouldn't have done it. but for me, like hockey stuff is just, it's cool to me. So I wasn't so kind of fixated on the percentage side, but at the end of the day, it was $175 in 3 weeks, and like you also can't be mad at that. So I was just curious what you guys thought about, if you look at things for margins, total dollars, a little combination of the two. When you're talking $175, it's not like we bought it for $5 and sold it for $10, right? We paid $200 total, but we made $175.
Well, if I could do that all day long, I would absolutely take it. No doubt, no question. That to me is a great margin. You turn around and grab $175 off of something you paid $200 for. That's just not bad at all. Stuart, I don't know how you feel about that.
Yeah, exactly the same way. Even a more extreme example. If you pay $100 for something, and even if you can turn it around really, really quick, and you're not tying your $100 up. Even if you could sell it for, $130. That's not a great margin at all, but it's still $30. And how many small things do you have to sell to make that kind of margin? Now it's obviously you don't want to buy something for $100 that you're going to have for 6 months and sell it for that. But I really think you just have to look at everything on a case by case basis. And I think you said it, Johnny. It's kind of a combination. It's great to get high margins, but a high margin can be buying something for $1 and selling it for $15. That's a great margin, but you still got to sell, just to make $100, whatever 100 divided by that 14. Of course, we're not counting fees or anything in any of this, but just, you got to sell a lot of those high margin items. So, I think it's a combination of both margin and, what's the least amount of what's the least selling price you want to sell stuff for. I know a lot of people have rules about, I'm not going to sell anything that's less than $30. I really sell anything. Of course, I have my booth as an outlet, so I can buy stuff for $1 and throw it in my booth for $8 and sell a ton of stuff like that. And at the end of the month, I look and I've done a lot of volume and made a really good margin and made quite a bit of money selling low dollar things like that. So,
well, Johnny, Stewart likes to make about $200 an hour. That is really where he likes to be on his margins, as he did on his Whatnot show the other day. I think when we talked about it last week, you said it was a 30-minute show and you made like $100. So That's like $200 an hour, correct?
Yeah, if I could do that, all day, every day, I'd take it. So, actually did another pop-up on Knickknacks this last weekend. I was telling Johnny before we started, we had an estate sale this last weekend that was in Kingston, so just west of Knoxville. I mean, and this thing was the craziest estate sale I've ever been to in my life. And so we get there, and of course, first they're giving you like safety guidelines about the house because it's like the basement's so full of stuff and it's dark down there. Make sure you're not going to trip over things. They had like 5 outbuildings that they hadn't even looked in. And then the craziest thing is they told me, yeah, this is the second round of this house that we've sold. I said, I missed the first one somehow. And after I went through it, I'm thinking, man, I wish I'd have been at the first one because the stuff I found, last weekend was crazy. So, they told us, hey, there's these outbuildings we didn't even get to yet. So if you go in there, be careful because there's boxes everywhere. But, if you buy whole boxes, we'll give you a good deal. So I sprinted straight to the first outbuilding and had like 10 or 15 minutes to myself in there. And I was pulling just boxes of, stuff like I sell. Like I've got one whole box of German Steins. There were probably 20 or 30 in there for like $15 maybe. And then tons of glassware and things of that nature, which is one of my bread and butter items. And then just paper. I think I've got, what stereo view cards are? I don't have one in here, but they had a little stereo view viewer that was looked like goggles, and then you stick the card in here, and it's the same picture like on both sides of the card. And anyway, it's kind of like a precursor to the ViewMaster. And I bought 1,000 plus of those things, and like a whole set from the 1898 St. Louis World's Fair. They're like, I don't know how many were in that set, but yeah, there were. I mean, yeah, it was just crazy. It was so much fun. And so I was able to do a live show when I got home on Friday and sold about a quarter of what I paid just in that, hour and a half live show. And then, of course, Amy and I went back the next day because it was 50% day and brought home a whole nother carload. So I got a lot of stuff to go through.
Stewart, have you ever heard of these plates that are by someone named M.A. Hadley?
I don't think so.
They're like painted cows. They're like plates, but then they're like hand painted like cows. Almost kind of look like a preschooler did it.
And they're called Hadley, you said?
M.A. Hadley is the artist.
Yeah, I'll look that up because I sell a ton of like collectible plates and things of that nature. I mean, I try to sell things that a lot of other people don't touch. I've mentioned it on some of the past shows. Amy calls me the China King of Knoxville. And just today I've been working on getting 12 place settings of China listed that I bought, plus 24 place settings of flatware that I bought at the same time with it. And the good thing is, I mean, I break it all up and it's very easy to list. Once you get the first one list, I just create a template and list perfectly. And then it's just really just, boom, boom, boom. You just change the name from dinner plate to salad plate to bread plate to whatever. But like Wes and I talked about last week, I mean, a lot of people don't ship that sort of thing because just the aspect of shipping breakables. But I've been doing it so long, it's like second nature.
I get anxiety sending shirts in boxes, let alone things that could actually break. So anyways, those plates I was talking about, Stewart, that M.A. Hadley. So Lizzie's mom gave her a ton of them when she moved in with me. And so we just had these plates, and I just thought they were the most hideous things that I originally thought she had said that a friend had made them. So when we were moving from Florida to North Carolina, we just threw them in boxes. We didn't even wrap them or anything. We didn't care. So of course we get to North Carolina and half of them are just cracked in half and whatever. And I'm just like, oh, good, we can get rid of these things. Well, fast forward, we get into reselling and we just start looking things up. And I'm like, hey, these plates from your mom? And she's like, yeah. And I'm like, remember all those ones that broke? And I'm like, yeah. They're worth a lot of money.
The key word there was were worth a lot.
Yeah. But they just look like some toddler painted cows on these plates. You don't even think of it, but apparently they do pretty well.
Yeah, just a quick search. It looks like they easily sell between $10 and $15 each. And I mean, there's a million sold listings out there. So they look like they're easy to sell.
Bravo, Johnny.
They're also easy to break. But it's kind of like, Wes, we're in that like 9 to 5, like this is our 5 to 9 as they call it.
Right.
And, the Goodwill's, like if you go to a thrift store on the weekend, it's a madhouse. I mean, there's a million people in there because everybody works Monday through Friday. So it was just a way to kind of show, like, even if you're part-time, like you can still do this all the time.
Right.
And it's just, sometimes it's not really my lunch break. It's me on the way home, but still, it can be done.
I'm going to do an Instagram for an ode to you. I'm going to copy the way you do it. I want you to watch it, and you can critique me on our next video. But I'm going to do that for you.
The worst part is when you're trying to sneak one in and then you don't find anything, and you're like, I have on my phone probably 9,000 videos of me walking into a Goodwill, but then there's no other content.
But listen, I believe you should just be truthful about it and go, all right, guys, wow, what a bust that was. We're cruising on to the lunch table now. So,
well, that's
like what happens though,
Yeah, and that's sometimes I'll show like I didn't pick this up, but people only want to watch fails so many times.
I don't know. Then, fails are kind of fun though. We are considered by some in the YouTube world to be at the bottom or a moderate podcast.
We are mediocre.
We are mediocre. At best. So somebody's got to be there. So why not us? And Stewart, you had alluded to this earlier. Our latest podcast from last week jumped off the gate pretty well. I think in that first day we had 30 something views. That's pretty good for this podcast, right? To be mediocre.
Yeah, not bad. Especially considering they just had to watch the two of us.
That's true. See, if Johnny was here, we could have got at least 7 more views. So,
I have 3 different just blank YouTube channels that have just been created over time, and so that's guaranteed 3 right there.
Well, there you go. But to everybody that has subscribed to us and has watched this mediocre podcast, we really do appreciate it because we enjoy doing it and getting together and talking the resale world of flipping stuff.
Soon you guys aren't even going to be able to walk around Knoxville together.
That's a true statement. Of course, we never have, but
yeah, it's funny you say that, Johnny. There was one time in my whole life, and I used to occasionally make YouTube videos. I very rarely do anymore, other than just I cast all my whatnot and knickknack shows to YouTube and Facebook, so I do have those out there. But I went to this yard sale like 3 years ago, and this lady goes, "You look familiar." She goes, "Aren't you on YouTube?" And then something like, and she goes, "Aren't you, is it Frank or something?" I said, "Well, I'm Frank on Hill Ventures is my company name." So she goes, "Yeah." She goes, "I really like that video you did about so-and-so." And it's like, well, that's cool. I felt like, some YouTube celebrity for, a day. This one middle-aged lady in Clinton, Tennessee is where she had her yard sale. But first and only
just signed her shirt. You signed her shirt. She didn't even ask.
I signed her forehead like Ricky Bobby.
I'm going to go get that tattooed. Mr. Mediocrity.
So, Wes, have you been thrifting now? I mean, are you getting back into the swing of things?
Oh, yeah. My wife and I, we've gone the last 2 weekends yard selling. And, we're getting back into it. Of course,
is yard sales for you guys like full go again? Like ours are still a little like.
Yeah,
they're coming.
I would consider last weekend kind of you had a few the weekend before last, but there were literally within a mile of my house, there were 4 neighborhood yard sales last weekend. Yeah. Of course, Friday kind of ended up being a little bit of a bust because, there was like 12. If you looked at the weather forecast on Thursday night, like 12% chance of rain. 8 o'clock rolls around, it just pours down rain from 8 to 10. So you had all these people with their stuff out, and a lot of it probably just got ruined.
So Stewart, when you go to an estate sale, what's your plan of attack?
Yeah, so when I go to estate sales, it's generally I always go to the books first. The one particular estate sale company I go to prices all their books at $2. So you can usually find like a lot of older books that I know I can, sell for anywhere between 10 to $100. I've sold books for as much as that I've gotten there. Found a 1700 something book. I think I talked about it on an earlier podcast.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And then I'll also, if they have vinyl, I try to make it to that. But usually there's a lot of competition for that, a lot more than the books. And then after that, just wherever the books are, whatever room they happen to be in, then I just kind of start wandering after that. I don't really have a plan past going to the books first. So,
Well, Stewart, I'm still considering Whatnot, but I have an offer for you. I know you know all about Whatnot. I may have to get you to help me with my first show.
all right. Yeah, no problem.
We may actually have to do one together. That way, it
That's
can
no problem.
Get
We
me
can
jumped
either-
off on the right foot.
I mean, we can either get together at your house or my house, and I mean, it's Whatnot doesn't make. You can actually have two people but it's not. It's not. To be honest, it doesn't work real well. So
Right.
we can just get together.
What are you going to sell, Wes?
That's a good question. I know I've got some Disney stuff that I need to move on from, and I know that there's a category for that actually. Dislandia or something. I don't know. But just different stuff that I need to go through my death pile on and figure out, I guess, categories from that because I've got several different things. But I was thinking if I did it, probably list 30 items, and just keep it short and sweet and simple.
Whatnot in general. I mean, this is just my opinion. I mean, I love Whatnot. When I first started on Whatnot, well, it's been almost 3 years ago now, I think. I mean, it was really hard to get accepted. I mean, I had to send videos. And then they came back and wanted more information. I mean, you literally had to prove you had enough stuff to not just run one show and be out of inventory. I mean, you had to.
I mean, I've got enough stuff. It's just trying to get in my mind frame the categories.
Yeah.
What this goes into, because I know they've got several different categories, and I guess I need to start doing my homework now and start pre-planning it. And I don't know. I'm just telling you that's how a layperson I am as far as when it goes to Whatnot. I don't know a whole lot about it.
Yeah, and my point was just that, it seems like they've really opened up the floodgates for sellers. I don't even think you have to show anything anymore. You just apply and you are automatically accepted. And, I know there's pros and cons to everything, but it's just, you see so many shows now at any given time. And, the audience is so fragmented across all those shows. It's just really hard, especially as a new seller. But even like me, running ephemera, it used to be, you knew you could find times when you'd be the only one, or there might be 2 or 3 other people. But I mean, it's really tough now to find a slot when there's not an ephemera, like maybe 5 or 6 other people. But if you go look at the comics category or plush categories or Pokemon, sports cards, I mean, at any given time, there's probably over 100 shows running in those categories. So, it's just, and they'll be like, this one has 2 in it, this one has 3 in it, and then there'll be one guy who's got, 100 and something because he's, been doing it a long time, or he's, got a big YouTube channel or whatever. But, and you can make it work. It just takes consistency, and it's just tougher now than it used to be, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. And we've moved almost completely away from it. We first started off doing hat shows, and, it took a little while to build it, but we were consistent on it. And we were doing $350 a show selling used hats, which is, ungodly. And then we noticed it started to slow down. And then the last 3 or 4, we've done like $50 to $60. But, and it dropped down to, $50, $60 a show, which, for an hour isn't bad. But like, it just, the stress of trying to source for it to then turn around and do $50, you're like, I could probably list 6 more things during that, that hour and that hour and a half and sell it and make it up. And, Frizz used to do clothing shows and would make 500, $600 a show selling used clothes. And now everybody and their mother has pallets. And so everything is either, new with tag or new without tag. And they're just selling out of pallets, and, everything's going for $8 or $9. And we've just kind of moved away from it and have focused more on cross listing and things like that, just for that reason, really.
Yeah, and I've done the same thing, Johnny. I used to do 4 or 5 shows a month. Now I average doing 1 to 2 shows a month. I think the problem you're going to find, Wes, if you just do 1 show a month, it's just hard to get traction, to get an audience in there. I mean, you got to almost be willing to give the stuff away if you want to sell anything. I mean, the only way to build your ratings to sell stuff, but then, you literally have to have stuff that you've got pennies in that you can afford to, sell pretty low to start building an audience. It's hard to go in and do like a one-off show and be successful. The people who are really successful at Whatnot that I found, they've really committed their whole model to Whatnot, and they do shows every day, and sometimes multiple times a day. And there's a lot of people who are very successful in Whatnot. I don't want to say the platform's not working at all, but I think you've really got to say, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to do Whatnot and just be on all the time and get that name recognition.
Yeah, because we had maybe 2 or 3 months where we were selling more on Whatnot than we were selling on eBay. And then we weren't doing anything different. And then all of a sudden, those numbers just started getting smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller.
But eBay slows like during the summertime. There's slow times on eBay as well. During those times, could you see picking it up on Whatnot? Would that be advantageous or no?
I mean, maybe, but once again, if you're just looking at Whatnot to go on, I'm not so much at eBay, so I think I'll go on Whatnot this week. I really think you have to work hard to build an audience and be on at the same time every week or multiple times a week or whatever you decide, but be consistent with it. And I see that even now. I've been on there a long time and have a lot of followers, but if I just randomly go on now, it's not like it used to be. I used to always have 40 to 50 people or more in my shows, and now a lot of times, I might have 10 to 15, or so in a show. It's just a little bit different environment. There's just more competition. So,
Stewart, do you see that? Are most of your buyers also resellers?
I will say that in the ephemera category specifically, because that's really the only place I've sold much on Whatnot. I do know a lot of the people who buy from me also run shows. So,
there was a time period where we were just like seeing our hats pop up on other shows. And it's like, if we're selling it for $5 and you're selling it for $6,
well, it's funny you say that, because I used to always joke, and especially, in the early days of Whatnot, the ephemera category was brand new. And literally everybody on there was just a reseller. And I just called it the Whatnot circular economy, because I would literally, I would sell stuff I got from somebody on Whatnot, then I'd see it in somebody's show, the very next day. So, or not next day, but, next week. And it's just like this stuff just looped around and kept getting sold. And
and it was hard. It was hard for us to stop, because we had built this it was a really cool community of like the same 10, 12 people that would be in every show. And we would just, chat it up. And it was just like an awesome hangout, almost like we're doing now. But it just became so much of a headache I'm trying to find hats that people are going to want to buy. And obviously even reselling has changed over 3 years, right? There's like 1 million more people reselling. So it's not even that easy to source, and it became such a headache and I will say, with Whatnot, it is not a platform to move crap. People want, this is still it can be your death pile, but it's got to be dang, I should have listed this, and not
you better have quality in your,
You know,
Well, yeah.
and it's not like this is in my death pile because I don't want to list it. Like it's got to be like this is in my death pile, but I should have listed it.
Yeah, and you're right. It's probably true that pretty much anything you sell and whatnot, you could. It's got to have some quality to it, and you can probably get more listing it somewhere else. But the beauty of whatnot is if you do have, you can move a bunch of stuff quick. When you can sell, 30, 40 things in an hour and a half that might take you weeks and weeks and weeks to sell on eBay, you're willing to take a little less money. But, I think it's just, at least, this is probably my fault because I haven't been consistent on whatnot. I just find that it's harder for me to sell like I used to, the volume and, and I do think, especially in the ephemera category, I do think there's more people in the category now, but there's a lot more sellers too. And everybody's selling postcards, everybody's selling photos, everybody's selling, Victorian trade cards. So at some point, I think the market just gets saturated, and so you just can't get as much as you used to could, a year or two ago.
All being said, Wes, we look forward to your show.
Well, you all have, here goes that whatnot ship.
No, I think, you got to give it a try. It is fun. Like Johnny said, I love the community part of it, and I miss doing the whatnot shows because ephemera is just like what Johnny was doing hats. It'd be the same 10 to 20 people in there, and you felt like you knew. You got to know them even though you'd never met them. And
well, there you go, folks. I can depend on Dennis and Stewart to really help me out when I need a lift. No, you're just keeping it real, which I appreciate. But that's part of like having podcasts like this and learning things because, who does know everything? I've never met anybody that knows every single thing. And so you flip stuff out there and try to gain some knowledge and use it as best you can.
I think if whatnot was still the whatnot of 3 years ago, that I would be a full-time reseller.
You just
we were literally
hang your job.
We were making $300 in an hour selling used hats. I would gladly do 3 or 4 of those shows a week. And just make.
Is it because you don't? Is it because you can't keep up with the inventory?
I think if I had to, I would. I think the problem was it was getting harder to compete with all these people. Like there's a guy on YouTube. His name's Hustler Hacks. He's got 133,000 YouTube followers. I watch his Snapback Hat show every Tuesday, and he's got 100 plus people in every single show, and he's selling brand new, like 47 brand new era hats. And some of them go pretty high, but some of them he's selling for $11, $12 a piece. And these are brand new. And when I first started Whatnot, if I had a fitted MLB hat used, Yankee, Nike 7 5/8, whatever, it was $12 used. And now people are paying that same money, getting brand new ones. And that was hard to compete with. And I've seen people on Whatnot in hat shows that started buying, Alibaba. They were they had all these brand new era hats, and I ordered a couple and got them, and I was like, these are knockoffs. And you're like, I don't, and and I started looking on Alibaba, looking at hats, and I go, I can't do it. Not like I'm some high moral whatever, but I was like, I just can't do this. Because at some point, someone's going to say, hey, something's off on this hat. And they're going to leave that feedback. And then someone else is going to read that and go, you know what? Now that you mention it, and then all of a sudden your rating's going down. And I don't know.
It's almost like you got out before your ratings, like on a TV show, start to plummet. You just, you hit it for a while and you just stepped out when you knew it was time to go.
Yeah.
That makes sense. The last thing I want to talk about, and Johnny, you had mentioned this, and your all's yard sales haven't ramped up yet. And this is different than what we usually talk about, but what's the things you walk by at a yard sale and why?
Well, I can tell you the first thing, if I drive up to a yard sale and I look and it looks like every bit of it's baby stuff or, kid stuff. I mean, I don't even get out. I mean, I know they probably have a table like behind all that's got really good stuff, but I used to get out for every yard sale. And I mean, if it's all baby stuff up front, that's all they got typically. So that's pretty much the first thing I'll just drive by any yard sale that looks like that.
Johnny, what about you?
I don't know a lot about video games. Like, everyone's always like, you watch these videos and everyone's like, hey, you got any video games you're selling? I wouldn't know. I mean, I played Madden and NHL and that was it. So any other game, like, I don't, I know, Wii Sports, can do what, like just kind of the one-offs, but I don't know enough about games to even really honestly even look at them. So we were at a yard sale. I don't know if it was last summer or the summer before. And Lizzie starts looking at all this like baby stuff, and it's like baby bumpers and like crib liners. And she's like, hey, I'm going to buy all this. I need $30. No way. She goes, give me $30. I got a good feeling on this. And I'm like, this is dumb. Like, here, like, I want you to buy this just so I can throw it in your face later. If that stuff didn't sell, it sell for $50.
So
yeah, we made a couple $100 off it, and I was like, all right.
Yeah, and I'm sure when I walk away from those sales, I'm probably missing things, but that's just not in my lane. Kind of like you talk about breakables aren't in your lane. I mean, that's just not anything I know anything about, and I'd have to literally sit there and research every item, while I'm at the yard sale. I mean, I don't mind pulling my phone out and looking stuff up, but, for the most part, at yard sales especially, I stick to stuff I know or because I can get in and out. I don't typically spend a lot of time doing comps at a yard sale. I mean, if things are a buck or two, I mean, if I have a feeling about it, I'm just grabbing it. I'm not going to waste my time looking up a comp.
Being at a yard sale is probably like the most humbling, because if you're in a Goodwill, you're looking things up and you're like, yeah, this is good. I'm going to buy this. But like you get into a yard sale where it's not your niche and you like, I don't know about you guys, but I just go dumb. Like, I don't know. I don't know what any of this is, Then you end up paying $50 for hockey jerseys because like that's, it's all you know. Mm-hmm. But it's like when you can't get reception in a Goodwill. Like I feel like it's my first day. I don't know.
Well, I do know one thing that's great to do. Like I don't remember, we may have talked about it last year. My brothers and I had a brothers yard selling weekend last year, and it was so good for me to go because both of them like do a lot with clothes, a lot with shoes, a lot with video games, things I know nothing about. And it was just so educational for me to be with them and see what they were buying, versus what, I was buying, because I don't even typically ever look at like jeans or look at things of like that. And, that's the first place they go. And I know one of my brothers made a ton on shoes. He bought it, a couple of the yard sales we went to. Now I was still the champion of the weekend. I mean, I sold a lot more, but most of it was based on one thing I bought that I sold for $600 and some. So, but,
well, I'm going to challenge you all. If you get out to a yard sale this weekend, purchase one thing that you would normally not even take a look at, and let's see what we can do with it.
So, all right,
just see what you can do with it. We'll each of us show what's the thing that we bought, and it's just a good challenge, I think.
I'll see what I can do.
So that's your challenge, gentlemen.
I'll go to the clothes rack. I'll head straight to the clothes rack.
Well, that is all the time that we have this evening on the mediocre, subpar maybe, Finders, Flippers, Resell podcast. Gentlemen, it's again great to spend some time with you and talk reselling. I hope you have a great evening.
You too.
All right.
We'll see you guys later.
Take care.